So, to, so today we're going to start chapter 4. It's called The Rulers of Terabithia. It's a really long chapter, so I'm just going to read part of it. Because school had started on the first Tuesday after Labor Day, it was a short week. It's a good thing because each day was worse than the one before. Leslie continued to join the boys at recess, and every day she won. By Friday, a number of the 4th and 5th graders had already drifted away to play King of the Mountain on the hill between the two fields. Since there were only a handful left, they didn't even have to have heats, which took away a lot of the suspense. Running wasn't fun anymore, and it was all Leslie's fault. Jess knew now that he would never be the best runner of 4th and 5th grade, and his only consolation was that neither would Gary Fulcher. They went through the motions of the contest on Friday, but when it was over, Leslie had won again. Everyone sort of knew without saying that it was the end of the races. At least it was Friday, and Miss Edmonds was back. The 5th grade had music right after recess. Jess had passed Miss Edmonds in the hall earlier in the day, and she had stopped him. "Did you keep drawing this summer?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "Can I see some of your pictures, or are they private?" I'll show you," Jess said. She smiled her beautiful smile and shook back her hair. "Great," she said. "See you." He nodded and smiled back. Now, as he sat on the rug in the teacher's room, the same warm feeling swept through him as he heard her voice. Even her ordinary speaking voice bubbled up from inside her. Miss Edmonds fiddled a minute with the guitar, talking as she tightened the strings. She was in jeans and she sat in front of them. She asked a few of the kids how they were and how their summer had been. They kind of mumbled back. She didn't speak directly to Jess, but she gave him a look with her blue eyes. She took note of Leslie and asked for an introduction, which one of the girls gave. Then she smiled at Leslie. "What do you like to sing, Leslie?" "Oh, anything." Miss Edmonds picked out a few chords and then began to sing. People began to join in, quietly at first to match her mood, but as the song built up at the end, so did their voices. "Free to be you and me." The whole school could hear them. Caught in the pure delight of it, Jess turned his eyes and met Leslie's. He smiled at her. What the heck? There wasn't any reason he couldn't. What was he scared of anyhow? Sometimes he acted like the original yellow-bellied sapsucker. He nodded and smiled again. She smiled back. He felt there in the teacher's room that it was the beginning of a new season in life. He did not have to make an announcement to Leslie that he had changed his mind about her. She already knew it. She plucked herself down beside him on the bus and squeezed over closer to him to make room for Maybelle on the same seat. She talked about Arlington, about the huge school she used to go to with the gorgeous music room, but not a single teacher was as beautiful or as nice as Miss Edmonds. "You had a gym?" "Yeah, I think all the schools did, or most of them anyway. I really miss it. I was really good at gymnastics." "I guess you hate it here, huh?" "Yeah." She was quiet for a moment, thinking. Just decided about her former school, which he saw as bright and new with a gleaming gymnasium larger than the one at the high school. "I guess you had a lot of friends there too, huh?" "Yeah," Leslie said. "Well, why'd you come here?" "My parents are reassuring their value structure." "What?" "They decided they were too hooked on money and success, so they bought that old farm, and they're going to farm it and think about what's important." Jess was staring at her with his open mouth. He knew it. He couldn't help himself. It was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard. "But you're the one that's got to pay?" "Yeah." "Why didn't they think about you?" "We talked it over," Leslie said. "I wanted to come too. You never know ahead of time what something's going to be like until you try." The bus stopped. Leslie took Maybelle's hand and led her off. Jessie followed, still trying to figure out why two grown people and a smart girl like Leslie would want to leave a comfortable life in the suburbs for a place like this. They watched the bus drive off. "You can't make a go of a farm nowadays, you know." My dad has to go to Washington to work, or we wouldn't have enough money. Money's not the problem, Leslie said. Sure it's a problem, said Jess. I mean, it's not for us. It took him a minute to catch on. He didn't know people for whom money was not a problem. Oh. He tried to remember not to talk about money after that with her. But Leslie had other problems at Lark Creek Elementary that caused more of a rumpus than lack of money. There was the matter of television. It started with Miss Myers reading out loud a composition that Leslie had written about her hobby. Everyone had to write a paper about his or her favorite hobby. Jess had written about football, which he really hated, but he had enough brains to know that if he said he liked drawing, everyone would laugh at him. Most of the boys swore that watching the Washington Redskins on TV was their favorite hobby. The girls were divided. They didn't care much about what Mrs. Myers thought about watching TV. Those like Wanda Moore, who were still aiming for A's, chose reading good books. But Miss Myers didn't read anyone's paper out loud except for Leslie. I want to read this composition, Miss Myers said, for 2 reasons. 1, it's beautifully written, and number 2, it tells about an unusual hobby for a girl. Mrs. Myers beamed at her first day smile at Leslie. Scuba Diving by Leslie Burke. Miss Myers' sharp voice cut Leslie's sentences into funny little phrases. But even so, the power of Leslie's words drew Jess under the dark water. Suddenly, he could hardly breathe. Suppose you went under and your mask filled up with all that water and you couldn't get to the top. He was choking and sweating. He tried to push down his panic. This was Leslie Burke's favorite hobby, scuba diving. Nobody would make up scuba diving to be their favorite hobby if it wasn't. That meant Leslie did it a lot. She wasn't scared of going deep down under the water, where there was no air and no light. He was such a coward. How could he be all in a tremble just listening to Miss Myers read about scuba diving? He was a worse baby than Joyce Allen. His dad expected him to be a man, and here he was letting some girl who wasn't even 10 yet scare the living daylights out of him just by telling a story about being underwater. Dumb, dumb, dumb. I'm sure, Miss Myers was saying, that all of you were as impressed as I was with Leslie's exciting essay. Impressed? I nearly drowned, Jess thought. In the classroom, there was a shuffling of feet and papers. Now I want to give you a homework assignment that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Tonight on Channel 7 at 8 p.m., there is going to be a show about a famous underwater explorer called Jacques Cousteau. I want everyone to watch and then write a page telling what you learned. The whole page. Yes. Does spelling count? Doesn't spelling always count, Gary, said the teacher. Both sides of paper? Just one side will do. But I'll give extra credit if you do extra work. Wanda Kay smiled primly. You could always see 10 pages shaping in her pointed head. Mrs. Myers? Yes, Leslie, the teacher said. What if you can't watch the program? You inform your parents that it's a homework assignment. I'm sure they won't object. What if... Leslie, what if you don't have a television? Don't say that. You can always watch on mine, but it was too late to save her. The hissing sound of disbelief was already building. Miss Myers blinked her eye. Well, in that case, you could write a one-page composition on something else. Couldn't you, Leslie? She tried to smile across the room. Class, class, class! She handed out the sheets of arithmetic math problems. Jess stole a look at Leslie. Her face bent low over the math. Her face was red. At recess, when he was playing King of the Mountain, he could see Leslie was surrounded by a group of girls, led by Wanda Kay. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could tell by the proud way Leslie was throwing her head back that the others were making fun of her for not having a TV. Greg Williams grabbed him then, and they wrestled. Leslie disappeared. It was none of his business, really, but he threw Greg down the hill. I gotta go. He stationed himself across from the girls' room. Leslie came out. He could tell she'd been crying. Hey, Leslie, he called softly. Go away, she said. Leslie, what's the matter? You know perfectly what's the matter, Jess Aarons. Yeah, he rubbed his head. You just gotta keep your mouth shut. You can always watch my... We'll find out later.